But when you identify children at risk through your EHR and you recall them and you do interventions that will improve care, you make money
Yep.
and you change the trajectory of a child's life. And so it's awesome.
Yep. No, I completely agree.
I can run a report of your practice and find out how many how many children in your office are dysglycemic. And then recall them, do the autobody testing, see which ones are going to be type 1 and which ones are insulin resistance that need to get into physical therapy so that they
Right.
improve.
Yep.
Kids benefit,
Exactly.
society benefits. It's wonderful.
Yep.
Now, amongst all these other things that you do, you also just recently served as the chapter president for the AAP Ohio.
Yep.
Level set, what is the AAP Ohio and why did you do it? And what did you come away with that you think was a really big win?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'd say probably the last 10 years of my career, I've been really dipping my toe into much more advocacy. And I really started out very, very minimally in the chapter. I don't know, gosh, it's probably 15 years ago. An email went out. They had gotten a grant from Save Our Site Ohio. Then they had developed some curriculum that really was meant for family practice residents, teaching them how to screen preschool vision screening. And they needed somebody to take it on the road. And so I traveled around and presented. Again, I love medical education. I love to teach. So it's perfect for me. I did this little project. It was great. Then that led to something else. Then that led to something else. And next thing I know, I'm on the board. And, next thing I know, sort of in the leadership track. I'm finishing up my final year. I've been on the board of directors for the chapter for 10 years. So I'm finishing that up next year. I'm currently the immediate past president. So I did 2 years as president of Ohio. And I think the reason I really got involved is, look, we can do a lot for our kids in our practice, maybe even in our communities, but trying to improve health at a much broader level is, I think, what got to want to be more involved. I was president from 22 to 24. So we were coming out of COVID. When I was vice president, our president, who's a fantastic critical care doc, doing interviewing was not her interest. So I ended up becoming the face of our chapter during those 2 years during COVID. And that's where I honed my media and advocacy skills. I'm very like our chapter CEO has been actually her 20th year, and she's probably one of the most longest tenured chapter CEOs or executive directors, and really runs our advocacy section along with a couple of pediatricians and our lobbyists. And I would say, interestingly, thinking about, there's a couple of things that I'm really proud of when I think about those 2 years. One of the biggest things was we successfully advocated for about a 6% increase in Medicaid payments to primary care. For years in Ohio, other codes were increasing reimbursement, increasing payment, other of those procedural, but not primary care. And in some cases, some of those increases were as much as 20%. So that was a huge, huge win for the pediatricians in Ohio. The other sort of thing that really happened in Ohio was soon after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, state of Ohio pretty much enacted a ban on pretty much all sort of reproductive rights, as many states did. There was a story in the news where a very young child in Ohio had to travel to Indiana. She had been raped and had gotten pregnant and had to go to another state for treatment. And there was a grassroots group of pediatricians that actually was centered in Cleveland that really started this movement of trying to get a constitutional sort of amendment on the ballot to reinstate reproductive rights, and wanted us to sign on. And that took a lot of discussion amongst the board. That we had some people who were one or two board members who very pro-life and weren't comfortable with that. And when we did this, we actually, obviously some feedback from our members, they didn't agree with that. But really, I think at the end of the discussion for the board, it was really about reproductive rights and services for our adolescents, and that we felt very strongly, and we battled with vaccine issues all the time, right? That really government doesn't belong in the exam room. That's a discussion between your healthcare provider and the patient. And so we were the only sort of state medical agency that took this on. Obviously, none of the Children's Hospital, none of the other state medical associations, and the ballot initiative passed. So again, that was a difficult, those were some treacherous waters to navigate. But I think in the end, I think health for our adolescent population is better because of that.